Hello viewers, welcome. We want to discuss biblical immunization and specifically how to counter snake bite venom. In Genesis chapter 3 verse 15, God says, "I'll put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed, and it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel." This is a prophetic text, and the prophecy may be interpreted in duality, where on one hand, this is a spiritual controversy between the woman and her seed, and this is the church and the devil. And the first phase of this battle culminates at Calvary with the defeat of Satan. We await the second defeat of Satan when Jesus returns. But the secondary application comes when, after Adam has fallen into sin, God discloses the possibility of physical harm from the serpent. And though the children of men have a high stature and therefore will easily crush the serpent's head, but they will not go without sustaining a bruise on their heel. And whether this bruise is a deadly wound or not will depend on whether the snake ejects snake venom. Or secondly, it will depend on the amount of venom injected into the wound, because venomous snakes can control the dosage of the venom they are injecting into their prey. Now, the metaphor of the serpent is a fitting description for Satan, because God intends, after the curse, the serpent to remain to crawl on the ground. So that's a low position that God has determined for the devil. Next, the serpent has poison, and you know that that poison is a symbol of sin. So the devil also contains the poison of sin. But because we'll be dealing with the physical aspect, we can be very sure that anybody who lives on this planet that the devil boasts to be his will receive snake venom literally and spiritually as well in the form of sin. So the devil would want people to die in their sins. But because we'll be discussing the physical aspect, let's see how God has prepared the human body in advance to receive snake poison. Now, the founding principle of genuine and natural medicine is largely preventive, and it is based on immunization and adaptation. God educates the immune system of the body by using living microorganisms and living food. So from the beginning, when God was creating man, he used the dust of the earth. Microorganisms had been created earlier, and God used the dust that was mingled with microorganisms to form man. Now this means that we form a very healthy and harmonious ecosystem with microorganisms. They are all over in our body, on the skin, the digestive system, the respiratory system, and also in the reproductive system. And we interact with them. Their work is not to harm us, but we have a symbiotic relationship that mutually benefits each party. So it also applies to babies when they are born. As they pass through the mother's birth canal, they are bathed with microorganisms. They also have a dosage of the microorganisms from the mother's anus. Now, if microorganisms caused any disease, then the best opportunity they have to cause disease is in a baby who does not have enough immunity. but they don't cause any disease in newborns. Their work is to educate the immune system of the baby. So once the baby has been born, it will thrive on breast milk, which is a living food. So God does not give to human babies dead food. It is living food. So the same also applies to Adam. Once he had been created, God provided living food. So God intends that the food that will sustain health and also restore it should be living food. And I need to emphasize this because fake medicine is based on injecting dead substances into the human body. That is why there is a great difference between immunization, which is natural, with vaccination, which is artificial. Immunization started at creation. Vaccination is an extension of evolution. So it's important to know that God has prepared our bodies for the possibility of interacting with snake poison in future. Now, in Egypt, we have kings that were called pharaohs. And the crown of royalty of a pharaoh is the shape of a cobra, which is a poisonous snake that wants to raise itself in order at the time of attacking its prey. So here we can see the symbol that characterizes the behavior of Satan, wanting to move from a low position where he has been condemned to a high position on the heads of kings. And this crown symbolizes judgment, death because of the snake poison, and also fear or intimidation. So the devil operates by causing fear to force people to comply. And before Moses was sent to Egypt, in the year 1400 BC, God prepared him to meet the real danger of the serpent, who is the devil. And God redeemed the Israelites with a mighty hand. He performed resounding miracles and events. And the devil was curious to follow up those events, especially those ones that instilled fear. And they could have humbled Pharaoh. And these are the same tactics the devil uses today because he is the greatest mastermind of counterfeit. But he might have been greatly amused and aroused, his curiosity aroused by acts that generated panic. For example, we have cases where the children of Israel in their pilgrimage to Canaan were faced by life-threatening events, and this generated panic to the extent they were so desperate to want to go back to Egypt. So the devil utilizes the same events today that will generate a lot of panic and force people to comply. A good example, 6 years ago in 2020, there was a pandemic, and because of its deadly nature as reported, it may not be real, but as reported, it caused a lot of panic, and people are forced to comply with government mandates on inoculation. And this could have caused them to make wrong decisions. But it is the work of the devil to cause terror among people so that he can force them to comply. So the devil is the master of terrorism. Now, before Moses went to Egypt, God has to prepare him how to counter terror, which is instilled by the devil. So Moses takes some lesson classes on terror and how to counter it. From the book of Exodus, chapter 4, verse 2, 3 and 4, it says, "And the Lord said unto him, What is that in thine hand? And he said, A rod. And he said, Cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from before it." Now, I want you to imagine how the devil could have scored, and this could have emboldened Pharaoh if Moses was running away when he was in Egypt from the serpent. Because God anticipates or helps Moses to anticipate that the magicians in Egypt are going to perform magic and cause the rods to become serpents. And because these serpents will be poisonous, they will force Moses to run away and fail to get the children of Israel out of Egypt. So that is why God had to give Moses these object lessons. So he converted his rod to a serpent, a poisonous serpent. And that is why Moses was running away. So this was an act of terror. And the devil loves this, something that is going to inspire or that is going to instill fear in people so that he can force them to comply. But we need to be bold and courageous, just as the Lord wanted Moses to. God is not impressed by cowardly decisions or acts. In Exodus 4, verse 4, the Lord said unto Moses, Put forth thine hand and take it by the tail. So here, we'll be looking at ways God has taught us to manage or to counter the snake. And one way to overcome a snake is to grab it by the tail. And I'll be showing you a picture of a snake so that I can describe it fully and how it manages to overcome its prey. Now, on your screen is the picture of a snake. And you can see a snake is long, so it's possible for the snake to move its tail far away from the head. And it will use the tail to lure its prey, and the head is placed away from the tail, but in very good distance. In case the prey comes, it will be able to grab it and bite it. So a snake has two body parts that are very important to it in terms of overcoming its prey. The first body part is the head, and the other one is the tail. The two parts are the narrowest in a snake, but they are the most lethal. The snake contains the head contains snake venom, and the tail it's meant to lure its prey. So those two body parts enables the snake to overcome its prey. So it's important to note that. And it is also good to know that venomous snakes contain venom in the part we call the head. But we also have poisonous snakes. Poisonous snakes may contain poison any part of the snake. But here we want to consider the venomous ones, the ones that contain the poison in the head. Those are the examples we've been given in the Bible a lot. Now, the tail of the serpent, according to Isaiah chapter 9, verse 15, we are given two body parts, the head and the tail. We are told, the ancient and honorable, he is the head. And the prophet that teacheth lies, he is the tail. So the tail is a symbol of deception and lies. The head is a symbol of honor, intimidation, and dominance. So the devil will use the head to intimidate and to dominate and to threaten. So he is called the ancient serpent. Now, you read the same thing in Revelation 12, verse 4, that his tail, that is the dragon, drew a third part of the stars of heaven. and it did cast them to the earth. So a third part of the stars of heaven, those are the angels. The tail here symbolizes deception. So the dragon was able to use deception to lure a third of the angels of God and cast them to the earth. Then the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, to devour her child. Now, the dragon, which is a big snake, would use the other body part to wait when the child is being born, and the child is born head first. So to devour her child, so it would bite and inject snake poison into the head of the child and inflict a lethal wound. So that is what the devil intended to do with the other body part, which is the head. Now, this is not the first time the devil is hurting children. Of course, the first prophecy is given in Genesis 3:15. And in order for that prophecy to be fulfilled, this child was taken away, because it is the child who is supposed to crush the serpent's head, not the serpent to inflict a deadly wound on the head of the child. So this is not the first time the devil intends to hurt children. In Egypt, when a Pharaoh who did not know Joseph acceded to power, he commanded all the midwives to strangle male Hebrew boys who are being born to death, and many male babies were killed. After Jesus had been born, the dragon, or the devil, also commanded Herod to kill all the babies who are less than 2 years old. And this is the way the devil works. He hates children because it is in the seed of the woman a savior who will crush his head will come. And therefore, since then, the devil hates children. And there's a deliberate and planned campaign to inject snake venom into babies even today. Now, let's see how God prepares Moses to face the dragon in Egypt. Now, we are told that in Exodus 7 verse 12, the magicians cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. And Aaron's rod, which is also called Moses' rod, or the rod of God, swallowed up their rods. So there's no human remedy to snake poison. These rods turned into poisonous or venomous serpents. And Moses this time, because he had been trained, he did not fear. So he stood still, dropped his rod, and his rod swallowed up all the venomous serpents. So this is the way God deals with snake poison. He fights on our behalf. We have no human remedy for snake poison. There are some people who survive after snake poison because they have a very strong immunity. And I'll show you how to survive snake poison, how we can prepare our immunity. But the largest part of the remedy, God provides it. And this is one case where God used his rod. Now, his rod simply symbolizes his power to overcome the venomous snakes. So in Mark 16 verse 18, Jesus gives us this promise. Now they shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover. We have examples in the Bible where servants of God like Paul interacted with venomous serpents. And even after being injected with snake poison, they did not die, because the poison, they did not take the poison voluntarily. It was by accident. So we can also overcome snake poison especially because the devil has been strategic. He will ensure that anybody who lives on this planet will take some form of snake poison at some point. And we are going to see how the devil will use modern medicine to ensure that everybody has received a taste of snake poison. So Jesus has promised that we will be able to overcome snake poison. Now, let's go to the wilderness. The children of Israel have now been delivered. They are in the wilderness. And in Numbers 21 verse 5, we are told that the people spake against God and against Moses. Wherefore have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, neither is there rainy water, and our soul loathes or hates this light bread. 21:6 says, and the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and much people of Israel died. Now, we have very important lessons to learn from this episode in the wilderness. One is that when people rebel against God and they start rebuking God and his servants, it disrupts the ecosystem, the other organisms in the ecosystem, because the peace in the environment is dependent upon our peace with God. So what happens is that there is starvation, no bread, and there is dehydration because there is no water. But despite the fact that there is no bread, the people hated the manna that God was raining from heaven. And because they rebelled against him and they spake against him, he withdrew the manna. When God rains manna, it provides food also to the other organisms. And therefore, when they rejected it and it was taken away, it affected the entire ecosystem where they were living. And so, even the serpents that were in the wilderness, in the rocks, could not get food. So what happened? They had to come out. The Bible says the Lord sent fiery serpents, but the Lord did not send. The people had created an environment where the serpents could now come to look for food elsewhere because what they were eating had been taken away, and now there was drought and there was no water. So it is most likely that when there is no food, people are starving and there is no water, every organism is going to suffer, including the serpents and any other organism on land and even at sea. As the people starve, the organisms will also get affected. Now, I'll tell you something about the serpents. What happens? Poison will depend on whether the snake is starving or dehydrated or not. Because venomous serpents concentrate their poisons more when they are starving, they have no food, and they have no water. It is so venomous to the extent if you are bitten by a starving serpent, you are most likely going to die. And that is what happens. So you will find the serpents that are venomous are found mostly in areas that do not have water or do not have food. Serpents that are in areas we call bread baskets or agricultural areas, they are not venomous because there's a lot of food. The same applies to people. When we get dehydrated of food and we get dehydrated of water and we starve, our body becomes so toxic and we are going to contract diseases of malnutrition, diseases of dehydration, and diseases of poor suffer from these diseases. There are institutions like the Big Pharma who come with solutions that are fake. When people are suffering from diseases, you don't give them drugs, or you don't give them vaccines. You're supposed to give them bread and water. But this is the tactic of the devil. When people starve, when people have no water, the devil brings fiery serpents that inject snake poison into the people. And the people will die faster. When they lack food and water, they die slowly. But when the serpents come and they inject snake poison into the people, they die faster. And there's a lot of confusion in Africa, where diseases of malnutrition, poor sanitation, and dehydration are treated with venom instead of people being given water. For example, we have this institution here you can see on your screen. I know you know that when you're lacking food and you're lacking water, this institution does not come to give you food and water. It will give you something that will poison your blood. By the way, you can see the name is Pharmacy and Poisons Board. Now, after the people had been bitten by fiery serpents and the serpent had injected snake poison, we are told in Numbers 21 verse 8 that God provided a serpent for a serpent. That is, a serpent look for serpent poison as remedy, because there's no known remedy, there's no known scientific remedy or human remedy for snake venom. Once you're injected with snake venom or a toxic substance, you will depend fully upon your immunity. Just as we have said that if the people had agreed to eat the food that God had given them, they would have overcome snake poison, because living food boosts your immunity and helps you to overcome snake venom. But they rejected God's food or manna, and therefore when the fiery serpents came, once they were bitten, they were dying very quickly. So in Numbers 21 verse 8, the Lord said unto Moses, Make thee a fiery serpent and set it upon a pole. And it shall come to pass that everyone that is bitten, when he looks up upon it, he shall live. And Moses made a serpent of brass and put it on a pole. And it came to pass that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived. Now, we have some lessons here. Now, the serpent was made of brass, and brass is not a clean metal. It's a combination of two metals, I think zinc and copper. And brass was found in the first compartment of the sanctuary. So it means it is pointing to something. It is pointing to an antitype, and that was Jesus. So Jesus is described in Revelation 1 as when he is in the first court, the first compartment of the sanctuary, to have worn this metal, which is brass. So brass is pointing to Jesus, and therefore this serpent was not the source of the healing, but the look of faith, looking up, lifting their faces up, was an act of faith that was bringing the remedy. It is not the brass serpent that was providing the remedy. Now, the other thing is that anybody who is bitten by the serpent, once he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived. So he did not die, he lived. So faith sustains our lives. And as we face many toxic substances injected by the devil, one component that is going to help us so much, even our physical health, is faith in God. If we look up to Jesus, we shall live, because Jesus is the great physician. So we are being trained to believe in Jesus as the only true physician, because he is the one who enables our immunity to overcome snake poison. So if we put Jesus out of the picture, we are not going to survive, even if we think we are fulfilling all the principles of health. So in John 3 verse 14, we are told, as Moses was lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so the Son of Man be lifted up. So Jesus is not represented by the serpent, but he is represented by the act of being lifted up. So in the same way, the serpent was lifted up, the Son of Man will be lifted up. So there is no reason to worship the serpent, because it is not an object of worship. But the act of faith of looking up is the most important thing here. So by looking up to Jesus high on the Calvary tree as our great physician, we will be healed. And faith matters a lot. In fact, most of the diseases that cause the death of people have to do with fear. Now, the opposite of fear is faith. The devil wants you to have fear by bringing articles of worship and actions that intimidate or instill fear. But Jesus wants us to have a look of faith, and we shall get healed, so that we overcome our stress and we boost our immunity. So in John 3 verse 15, whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. So the other most important component of healing is faith in Jesus Christ as the great physician. Now, you will be surprised that the devil converted the brass snake that Moses had put on the tree as an object of worship. He converted the serpent into an object of worship. And this is what we are reading from 2 Kings 18 verse 4. Hezekiah removed the high places and break the images and cut down the groves and break in pieces the brazen serpent that Moses had made. For unto those days the children of Israel did burn incense to it. He called it Nehushtan. That was 700 years later, in 700 BC. Wow, imagine. The people converted the bronze snake into an object of worship. Was healing coming from the snake, or was it coming from the idea of faith in one who would save them, and that is Jesus Christ? But the devil might have found a very captivating object of worship, and now he wants all this worship to go to him through what we call the bronze snake. Now, do you know that later, even before Jesus had been born in 460 BC, the devil had used the Greeks to start what we call the worship of Moses' rod with a snake entwined on it. The Greek god of healing is called Asclepius. And this is a false Christ, or Jesus is the great physician. So Jesus said, there shall be false Christs. And this is a false Christ because he is pretending to be the physician. Jesus is the only physician. So the Greek god of healing is called Asclepius. So he is in the shape of a man who is holding a rod or a staff with a snake entwined on the rod. And that is 460 BC, before Jesus is born. And you see the color of the statue? It is brass. So the devil has started using this object of the brazen serpent as the object of worship. Now, this Greek god of healing was housed in the temple that was in Pergamos. This was where the Greek god of healing had a sanctuary, the temple in Pergamos. So the sanctuary at Pergamos is described in these terms. The Asclepion of Pergamon is located in modern-day Bergama or Turkey, and it is one of the ancient world's most renowned healing centers. It is dedicated to the god of medicine, Asclepius. Flourishing in the 2nd century, that is before Jesus was born, this spa-like sanctuary treated patients through holistic methods, including water, mud baths, herbs, dream interpretation, and psychotherapy, and alongside spiritual rituals, making it a pioneer of early medicine. So early medicine was dedicated to the god of medicine. His name is Asclepius. His sanctuary was at Pergamos. And the Bible also speaks of Pergamos in these terms. In Revelation 2 verse 12 and 13 we are told, "And to the angel of the church in Pergamos write, These things saith he which hath a sharp sword with 2 edges. I know thy works, and where thou dwellest, even where Satan's seat is. And thou holdest fast my name, and hast not denied my faith, even in those days wherein Antipas was my faithful martyr, who was slain among you, where Satan dwelleth." So there was bloodshed in the sanctuary at Pergamos, and that was where the seat of Satan was. So divine intelligence helps us to know that the same place where we had the seat of the god of medicine in Pergamos is the same place where the seat of Satan was placed. So you can see the connection between medicine, that is fake medicine, and the devil. So the devil wants to use medicine as a mechanism of forcing people to comply to his worship. And I'll show you how he will force people to comply to worship using medicine. Now let's come to modern medicine. So on your screen is a gentleman called Andrew Carnegie. Okay. Then next we have the gentleman on your left. He is called Abraham Flexner. And the one on the right is called John D. Rockefeller. Now, it is John D. Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie who sponsored Flexner to write what we call the Flexner Report. Now, John D. Rockefeller, who died in 1937, fundamentally reshaped the 20th century medicine by leveraging his own fortune to fund scientific medicine. And he sidelined everything that is natural. He got rid of all holistic practices. He removed nutrition in the medical institutions, and use of herbs was demonized, so that he started medicine based on purely pharmaceuticals. So Rockefeller set up what we call the Rockefeller Foundation in 1903 that was funding all medical schools, and therefore any medical school that was teaching anything else apart from pharmaceutical-based medicine did not receive any funding. So in 1910, and the ground is being prepared for the god of medicine to be worshipped. In 1910, Flexner wrote what we call the Flexner, the infamous Flexner Report of 1910. And this one marginalized all schools or any university that was teaching anything else apart from pharmaceuticals or pharmaceutical-based medicine. So Flexner had recommendations, some of which were to close all alternative schools that were teaching traditional, botanical, and eclectic medicine. Then marginalization of practices such as herbal medicine, osteopathy, and naturopathy. So anything natural, herbal, or nutrition was taken out, was dropped from the curriculum. And then he established allopathic medicine, which has become the sole and the legitimate form of medicine today and for many years. So anybody else was called a quack. If you're seen using herbs, they could call you a quack, or they say you're practicing witchcraft. In fact, negative connotations such as use of concoctions, quackery, and witchcraft were used to describe those people who are using nutrition and herbal medicine and botany for healing. Chiropractic was scrapped from the curriculum, and people had to adopt allopathic or medicine based on pharmaceuticals. So that is 1910. And I said the ground is being prepared for the worship of the Greek god of medicine. So in 1912, what happened? So the American Medical Association, so being a model of medicine in the entire world, is the first one to adopt the rod of Asclepius. So the American Medical Association adopted the rod of Asclepius as a medical insignia in 1912. So the AMA's decision was part of a shift by professional medical organizations to use the historically correct symbol for medicine and healing. So that symbol has a single serpent entwined on a roughly hewn rod. And I'll show you the picture. Now, they used to use the rod of caduceus initially in the past, but then it had mixed messages. So they adopted the rod of Asclepius, which has only one message, that it is one serpent, one devil, or Satan himself who is being worshipped. And you see, the snake is coiled on the rod to be a symbol of healing, reminding us of maybe the brazen snake, but this is not true. This is a symbol of the Greek god of medicine. So Satan has used serpents since the time of Egypt as a symbol of intimidation, causing fear, forcing people to comply. And the snake poison that the head of the serpent produces, because as you go back to the screen, I'll show you something. The screen on the serpent, on the rod of Asclepius. Now you can see where we have the serpent. Check on your screen on the right side where we have the rod of Asclepius. You can see the snake has the tongue, the forked tongue of the snake has been produced. So that is a snake in the mood of producing poison. So in other words, this is a snake in the attacking mode. So it is already generating poison from its head. So this is a very active snake that is ready to bite and inject poison. So this rod is very significant in the devil's kingdom, because number one, it is raised and the devil does not want a low position. So this is an extraordinary snake which has moved to crawling on the ground, and it's now up on a tree from a very high position, because the devil loves to be raised. And that position, when a snake is on a high position, it is intimidating. You cannot crush a snake's head when it is in a high position. So the devil raises himself to a high position where he is immune from being crushed on his head. So this is a symbol of dominance, intimidation, panic, and also uh, it is a symbol of a snake in its active mode, ready to bite and inject poison. Good. I hope you have captured that. So where did the rod of Asclepius originate? Now let's hear from the provided data. The rod of Asclepius originates from the ancient Greek mythology, where it is the staff of Asclepius, the deity associated with healing and medicine. So the staff of Asclepius is dedicated to the deity, and it is associated with healing and medicine. So the devil has a lot of interest in medicine because he can use that position to intimidate and force people to comply. So it features a single serpent wrapped around a rod, symbolizing healing, rejuvenation, and the wisdom of medical arts. So this is the tail part of the serpent because it is deceptive. Because they are saying that symbol symbolizes healing. There's no healing. It's only poison. The snake cannot inject a cure and poison at the same time. Because Jesus tells us that a fountain cannot generate sweet and bitter water at the same time. So the snake will not generate poison and at the same time generate a panacea or a cure. No, that will not happen in natural occurrences. So the tail part of the snake says that the serpent features or symbolizes healing, rejuvenation, and the wisdom of the medical arts. So this is meant to lure its prey. So the symbol is derived from tales where snakes bestowed or represented secret knowledge of healing. So that's the information we have. Now, let's go to some facts here you cannot deny. Now, I want to show you what is contained on the Hippocratic Oath. This is the oath doctors take after graduation, and there is a symbol of the rod of Asclepius. So this is dedicated to the Greek god of healing. Ironically, it says, first, do no harm. Yet there is a snake with poison actively wanting to inject it into its prey. But then, ironically, we are told, first, do no harm. So you are telling a venomous snake not to harm. Interesting. Now, secondly, we have major institutions in the world using the symbol of the rod of Asclepius dedicated to the god of medicine. So you can read from there. It says Asclepius was the god of medicine, and the staff was considered as an object of worship. So this symbol is actually worship. It is the worship of the devil. Just the same way the devil caused the children of Israel 700 years later after Egypt to worship the serpent on the road, now he is forcing us to worship him by putting symbols of worship on major organizations' logo, like the World Health Organization logo. So it continues to say that sick and injured pilgrims would visit the temple of Asclepius in Pergamos, Turkey, to seek a cure through rituals, and one of the rituals was called incubation. Incubation is temple sleep. They were hoping the god of medicine or his sacred snakes would appear in their dreams with treatments or advice. So this is deceptive. A venomous snake cannot give you a cure. It will only give you poison. Now, let's see the other institutions we have in the world that use the symbol of the rod of Asclepius. So on your left, you have the Kenya Medical Association, the rod of Asclepius dedicated to the god of medicine. On your right, we have the British Medical Association, also has the rod of Asclepius. Now, in the next picture, we have the American Medical Association also uses the rod of Asclepius. And then we have the Chinese. So this is a communist country, but yet it has adopted the rod of Asclepius. So we can say this symbol is widely used. The devil is being worshipped, whether knowingly or unknowingly, but by all people. That is why I said the spiritual battle and the physical battle continues. And the devil was cast after sin, and he was put at a low position. But now he has been raised. Instead of the great physician being raised or lifted up, it is the devil who has been lifted up in the form of a serpent so that he can be worshipped. By the way, if an object is high, it is meant to be worshipped. If an object is low, it can be trampled on. So the devil, when you look up, when he is raised high, you are actually worshipping him. So the Russian Medical Association also has a symbol of the rod of Asclepius. And then we have the Brazil Medical Association. So this means the devil is being worshipped today, just as he caused the Israelites to worship the bronze serpent. We are worshiping him today in the form of medicine. Now, I'll teach you something that you may not have known. Now, did you know that vaccination is the bedrock of preventive medicine? So we have another form of medicine like the one God started with immunization, which was largely preventative by God educated our immune system with living organisms and living food. But we also have another counterfeit medicine that uses vaccination, and it has been hyped to be fundamental, transformative, and cost-effective. They can generate so many vials of vaccines with the maximum benefits and profit, and therefore it has become the pillar of modern medicine. It is said to be a savior. It has saved millions of lives annually. So the only name known in modern medicine, it is the name of the vaccines because they save. But you know, vaccination is not immunization. I started by saying so because immunization is natural, vaccination is artificial. Immunization was started by God at creation. Vaccination was started by Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie, and it is an extension of evolution. Immunization uses living microorganisms and living food to educate the immune system. Vaccination uses dead substances such as fetal cells, dead cells from fetuses and monkey kidneys, and heavy metal like aluminium and mercury to educate or to train the immune system to generate antibodies with hope that those antibodies will protect you against a virus in future. But the immune system uses living substances. Please also note that the immune system helps us to adapt. Okay? It breeds adaptation. But with vaccination, it causes mutation. So it's likely to cause disease. So there is a very big difference, a world of difference between immunization and vaccination. Now, it's important to note that with vaccination, you get injected with a virus, which they say it's a weakened form of a virus. But what is the meaning of virus? Now, let's consult Dr. Beigerink in 1897. He is the one who coined the name virus. And he simply says that virus means poison. So he injected the virus into healthy plants and organisms, and they were becoming sick. So that is why a virus is a poison. So snakes produce viruses. So can be used interchangeably. They eject viruses or they eject poison. So we can say that the poison from a snake is also called a virus. So that is according to Dr. Beigerink. Now, serpent for a serpent, virus before a virus. Now, the mechanism or the principle of vaccination is to inject a weakened or attenuated form of a virus into a healthy body. Please note, viruses are injected into a healthy body. And viruses, according to science, they are non-living particles, so they are dead particles. And viruses, according to Dr. Beigerink, it's a poison. So a poison is injected into a healthy body before the actual sickness. And it is said that by so doing, you're going to make antibodies that will protect you from another virus in future in case you get a viral disease. So it's virus before a virus or poison before a poison, according to Dr. Beigerink. So there's no known cure for poisons. There's no known cure for snake poisons, no known cure for snake venom, and there is no known cure for viruses. So the only cure for a virus is by your own immunity. So you must have a very strong immunity. And I'll challenge you not to reject God's food or God's manna or the health practices that God has instructed us. Because those ones will save you from the snake venom. Do not be like the Israelites who rejected manna from heaven and they were injected with snake venom. Now, do you know what? That because the principle of modern medicine is based in vaccination, that is, treating a healthy person by injecting a virus with the hope that it will generate antibodies to protect him against another virus in future. So you are treated before you get sick. Do you know that Jesus warns against treating people who are healthy? In Matthew 9, verse 12 says, when Jesus heard that, he said unto them, they that be whole need not a physician, but they that are sick. In Luke 5, verse 31, from the New Living Translation, Jesus answered them, healthy people don't need a doctor, sick people do. Now, there are so many people who have died because of contravening this statement by Jesus Christ. Please do not seek treatment if you're not sick. Let the sick people seek a physician, but not the healthy. When a healthy person is treated, he becomes sick. So let's listen to the great physician who says, please do not seek treatment if you're not sick. Now, the image on your screen is the image of a needle that is used to draw a virus or a vaccine from the vial that you can see. Now, the needle has two parts. It has the blunt end, which is the tail, and it has the head, which is the sharp part where the contents come out. So when you're holding a needle, I want you to be wise Just as God taught Moses, please hold the needle by the tail. Do not hold it by the head because it might poison you. So when you hold the needle, ensure you hold it by the tail. And ensure your hands are protected, because you can spread poison on your hands. So please listen to this. Never hold the needle by the head. It can injure you. Okay? So just as Moses was told to hold the serpent by the tail, it is always important to hold the needle from the tail end, not the head end. And this is the reason. Now look at the pictures on your screen. They have been taken using an electron microscope. Now the first image, there are 4 images on your screen, but the first image is the image of a needle. It is shaped like a pipe. It has a hollow area with a sharp end which is beveled. Now that hollow area is meant to carry or to drive the virus inside your body. Now look at the second image. It is the image of a snake fang. It is shaped like a needle, but is the fang of a snake, and it has a hollow area that is meant to drive the snake venom into your body. Please, that is why I am cautioning you. Never hold the fang or the snake by the head. Always hold the tail. Jesus only has the ability to crush the snake's head or the tip of the snake, not human beings. Okay? Unless God has enabled us to crush the serpent's head. Now, the third image is of a spider tooth. As you can see, it has a hollow, and that hollow bears the poison. It can inject it into you, and you can die if you do not have very good immunity. Now, the fourth image is the image of a scorpion sting. And as you can see, it has a hollow, and that hollow is the one that drives the poison into your body. So for all these organisms, together with the needle in the first image, please avoid touching the tip. Never allow the tip to get into your body, because all these 4 images are instruments of injecting snake venom or venom, to say the least. Now, in summary, I will give you some very important advice how to counter snake poison. So the first thing I'll tell you, just as God told Moses, do not panic, because the devil has used fear in the past. He has used fear recently in order to force people to comply with government mandates. So in any case you hear there is a pandemic, or you hear there is an event that is life-threatening, please do not panic. Do not run away from the serpents of the magicians. Just hold them by the tail. Don't run away. Grab them by the tail. You can subdue deception by grabbing it by the tail. So the second precaution is hold it by the tail and bind it fast. So if somebody wants to bring snake poison to you using one of the images that we have described above, please be calm, do not panic, grab it by the tail and keep the head of the fang or whatever instrument is being used away from you. So do not allow the tip to come near your body because you are likely to get snake poison from that tip. So keep the head away from you. And lastly, once you have grabbed the snake by the tail or whatever instrument is being used to inject snake poison into you, grab it and hold it fast and then cast it into the bottomless pit, because that is the final resting place of snake poison and the dragon who produces that snake poison. Now, the equivalent of a bottomless pit is any deep pit you can find. So any deep pit, where there's a pit latrine, you can see, cast it there, because you do not want to throw it anywhere. Otherwise, it will become a health hazard to other users of the planet. So cast it into a bottomless pit, and that will be prophetic for the final resting place of snake poison, together with the producer of that poison, and that is the great dragon or the serpent, the serpent. So thank you so much, brothers and sisters. I have used a lot of symbolism, but you know why? Be wise. Be very wise. Be educated. God has educated your immune system, and please serve your immune system with living food, not dead substances, so that you will be able to overcome snake poison. And you should be able to overcome snake poison anytime the devil brings it your way. Thank you so much. God bless you. Let's meet in the next presentation.